Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Everything Co-op this beautiful Thursday morning. Today we have the absolute pleasure of having Dr. Cynthia Pinchback-Hines on with us. Good morning, Dr. Pinchback-Hines. How are you doing this morning?
I am great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And we're going to have the chance to talk about Co-op Cincy and Co-op Dayton and the things that you guys are doing in Ohio. But I want to first get a little sense of who you are and how do you got into co-ops. So how did you find out about co-ops?
Well, I found out about co-ops about 10 years ago. In fact, when Co-op Cincy, which was then called Cincinnati Union Cooperative Initiative, when they first started, my husband and I were both very involved in community activism, social change, social justice, and we attended an event. I can't recall the exact event, but I think it was perhaps one that was sponsored either by CUCI at that time or a union event. And we were asked if we would be interested in joining the board. But this was after, talking with some of the folk and listening to their plans. And we both thought it's transformational. Definitely. So let's do it. And so my husband and I both joined the board back 10 years ago. And since that time, we've been, involved. My husband, unfortunately, his health has had him, not participate in the past couple of years. However, I've continued. I retired from a teaching position and then asked, hey, am I needed in some other way? And I was told, yes, we have some other plans, some other things we want to do. And I just jumped for it. Yes. Now okay. I'm all in, and I am excited about what I'm doing and about what all the wonderful things are happening around Co-op Cincy.
So 10 years ago, you found out about co-ops, and you said you just retired. So you found out about it. You only look like you're about 30, but if you retired, you got to be a little bit older than that. Okay. So at the end of your teaching career, you found out about co-ops. And you're a doctor, so you didn't find out about it in any of your, like me, you didn't find out about it in any of your formal education about this co-op work. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. In formal education, all those years, and even having taught higher education most of the time, and I ended my career teaching secondary ed. I had, I guess, maybe just either missed or was misinformed or, again, just ignorant. That's all there is to it, until I was approached by them. And then over the years became, of course, more and more curious, having been a member of the board and then seeing, again, how these wonderful, really young individuals, started and then they planted seeds. They worked, very, very vigorously, very, very diligently, in the field. And they were able to, nurture it. Again, we had some wonderful support from Michael Peck and from some of the, other people who had already been in this space. And so from there, I just wanted to know more and more.
Know more and more. So as an educator, what did you teach? Like me, I have a bachelor's degree, a master's in math, and an MBA, and I heard nothing about co-ops in that formal education. You went all the way through a PhD and did not know, and you said you taught. So what did you teach?
Oh, gosh. I taught courses primarily in English undergrad major. I was an English undergrad major. And then also majored in, of all things, speech. And it was called speech education. It's Ohio State. I wanted to be, I was a thespian, okay? So I thought about pursuing acting to some extent, at one point. And then I decided, no, that's really not for me. But I taught primarily courses in English composition. I taught public speaking. I taught some courses in journalism even. And then when I did get my PhD in educational leadership for higher ed, I was at a point then where I had already started working, and I was more interested then in courses that involved social change. So that's what I did most of my career. And then I ended secondary ed teaching English, 10th grade English in high school.
So I taught 12 years in my career at the college level, 11 of those, teaching math and then business. Again, nothing in co-op. So you weren't teaching business or entrepreneurship or anything like that. You're teaching us what I still need help in is English and speaking. So you're teaching that those skills. Nowhere are you in this whole realm of business or co-ops or capitalism. And so you're just doing social work. So, and you hear about and are asked to be on the board. That's how I got it. So this is like somebody saw something in you and your activism and they wanted you to join this. That's it?
I think you summed it up. You really summed it up. I was very connected to community and, again, social change. And that came from my background. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Virginia in a town that was a small town, and we had a lot of restrictions as African Americans because that was during Jim Crow days and all that. And so I'm one of the relics who still remembers the signs, separate signs, the whites only signs. I remember, the times of demonstrations and protests through family members. And also, well, put it this way, there were difficult times. And my church happened to be the largest Black church in my hometown. And we had a very active NAACP. My pastor, in fact, was the president of NAACP for her chapter for 40 years. And so I grew up with that social justice background. It was just basically ingrained. And when I could see as a child, social injustice, then it would bother me. And I had a curiosity beyond my parents' comfort level sometimes. I was the one who was going to try to find out, what does that water taste like on that side, so. And
that white-only fountain. I got my hands smacked when I was about 5 for going to that white-only fountain. I didn't know I could read. And so, I got that. I was never curious about how it tastes. I guess when I got my hands smacked, I didn't even want to go close to the white-only fountain. Or go to the movies, we had to go in the balcony. And I prefer the balcony when I go to places, but that was the only choice we had. And we had to go to the side entrance of the movie house.
Right.
So, a lot of interesting things growing up. And so what city were you in, Virginia?
Danville. I was in Danville, Virginia. It's about 45 miles north of Greensboro, North Carolina. So we're right there on the border of North Carolina. It's about 10 minutes from my house, my home. We could just drive across the border, and we often did, of course, go to maybe Greensboro for a Sunday drive, to check out the houses there that we couldn't, really either afford or we weren't going to be welcomed in, but we would do that type of thing. Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Bluefield and went to Bluefield State College, and there were a lot of kids from Danville, Virginia, that went to Bluefield State, and I went there in 66 and graduated in 70. So, yeah, and I've been through Danville several times. Yeah.
Yes.
So I get
it's a place that people go through a lot. I noticed that. Most people, if I'm talking to a group of individuals and then there's a huge audience. I mean, it could be a huge audience, it could be a smaller audience. And I ask, has anybody ever heard of it? And then they'll go, oh, yeah, I've heard of it. I've driven through there. And so, yeah. And I remember Bluefield State, too, because I have relatives who actually attended Bluefield State.
So nowhere in Bluefield State did they teach about co-ops. Mm-hmm. And later in Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nimhard's book, Collective Courage, I found out that the students at one point, I don't know if it's the 40s or 50s, but the students owned the bookstore at the cooperative at Bluefield State. And all she said in her book was that it disappeared, and it was interesting. And it would sound like it was doing good work because the profits they used to give scholarships. And so they were doing scholarships at Bluefield State. So there's a lot of history about co-ops, and unfortunately we didn't teach it, we didn't learn it, or it wasn't taught. It wasn't that we missed it. It wasn't taught. You had mentioned maybe you had missed it earlier. So, okay, so that's your background, and we also told us how we got into co-ops. So what are you doing now in Co-op Cincy?
Well, now my primary role is that of racial justice educator and co-op developer, and I am the person who's leading the effort for Power in Numbers Black Co-op U. It's a 14-week intensive training where we have participants go through every Tuesday evening. Right now it's Tuesdays from 6 to 8. They cover, soup to nuts, as they say, or everything that they need to know about.
I want to talk to you.
The title of your show, everything about co-ops.
So I want to talk to you about the soup to nuts when we come back off the break. We're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back. I really want to know about this power in numbers. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. And we have Dr. Cynthia Pinchback-Hines, who is telling us about her history growing up in Danville, Virginia, getting educated with a doctorate, and not knowing anything, not being trained at all about co-op, which is similar to my experience. Dr. Hines is an educator. She taught most of her career at the college level, and English and speech and all of those things about ability to communicate. And then she ended her career, retired as a 10th grade English teacher. She holds a PhD in education leadership, and she started at Virginia State, Delaware State, and served as Associate Dean of African American Affairs and Ethnic Service at Northern Kentucky University. Tremendous amount of knowledge, and somebody asked her, with her social justice, to be on the board of Co-op Cincy, and she and her husband said yes, and she learned about co-ops, and now she's working with them. So right before we took the break, you told us about you're in charge of racial justice and co-op development at the Co-op Cincy, and you were talking about Power in Numbers Co-op U. What is this Power in Numbers Co-op U?
All right. So Power in Numbers Black Co-op U is a program that came about as a result of a grant that we received from Common Future. The first cohort that we had took place earlier this year. It started in April, and for 14 weeks, we ran the program till the very last day, which was July 6th. Okay, so on July 6th, that was the culmination of all of, the learning, the training, where the participants, and we had 5 teams, meaning 5 different businesses that applied for the program, 5 businesses that applied and were selected. Okay, so there were more that applied. And we were able to share with them as much as we knew, about what it would take for them to be successful. We had really followed what Co-op Cincy already had started, which was a national Co-op U. And what we did with this program is just contextualized it to reflect the Black experience. So that's basically what we did, because they were all African Americans who participated in this particular program. And they worked diligently. I mean, really did some tough work. Every week there was homework. Every week there were presentations. And, it would get to the point almost a go, no go, because there's nothing that says that you have to be a co-op, once you're done with this program. It was more or less, you came in understanding co-ops. Now that you know them better, are you sure this is where you want to take your business? Businesses where we had the most mature business that came in had already been operating for about a year. The others were newer or somewhat new, but they'd all had experience in their respective businesses. And at the very end, which was that 14th week, we had a pitch. They all had to create a pitch, develop a pitch, which they worked on, of course, for weeks leading up to it, because we told them from the beginning there would be a competition. And at the end of the competition, we had our judges who were selected from the community primarily and beyond. I said beyond because we also had a few others as well outside of Cincinnati. But these were folk who were either members of our board. We had a board member there. We had a few business owners, person who was involved with the Urban League. We had just different facets of the community represented as judges, and they selected the best pitch from those. And we had 5 businesses, and I can share them with you now and what they did.
Who are they?
One was called Body by Baji, which is a manufacturer of a swimsuit that can be worn 12 different ways. Okay, so this is grandmother and granddaughter starting this business, and there's so much potential. Perhaps the one that was determined to have the greatest capacity, for earning, because it's global wide. Another business was called Hopes Fulfilled, Farm to Table, which is very unique because they've taken not just a food truck, but they've converted a school bus to a food truck that's also an experiment for learning. It becomes an actual laboratory for teaching students, as well as having the students serve and get paid, for doing this. We have Queen Mother's Market, which was a business that starts out as being a full-fledged one to have a grocery store for one of our food deserts, which is in Walnut Hills. Well, after going through this process, the person that led this particular business decided, well, let's start with the Buyers Club, because actually, brick and mortar right now is a little premature. We have to work our way to that. So she started a Buyers Club where, other folk can buy into it as well. And then we had a T-shirt company started by a church that wants to create jobs for their members and the community. And the 5th is called A Touch of TLC, Home Health Care for Women, who've come together and who all have experience in the home health care industry. And they've come together to form a business that ended up being the winner for this pitch. So they won the pitch, $10,000, which was,
wow,
seed money, of course. $10,000 was the award for that. And then as a consolation prize, each one of the actual businesses received $2,000 just for participating and being fully incorporated as a co-op, in the end. So we support, and the thing about Co-op Cincy is that we have great, first of all, dynamic people working. When I first came there, and I'm going to name some names, but we had Ellen Vera, who does most of the grant writing and grant work. But then also we have the executive director, Kristen Barker, who is absolutely superb in the work that she does. We have Paloma Correa, who's done fantastically in terms of being able to, connect all of these different businesses. And she's also set in to help with communications, and she's done a superb job in whatever she touches, put it that way. We have some new folks on board. Clancy McGilligan's helping us with our communications, and then Angelica Coley just joined. We have Christopher Bennett, who's over the Business Legacy Fund. Oh, by the way, Angelica is our operations office manager now and also co-op developer. We're just excited. We have another person, B. Newberry, who's helping with some of our writing. So we have an excellent staff, and 4 of those individuals I just named were just hired within the past few weeks because we've grown outside of. Yes, we're growing.
You're growing. And so listen, I would like to go back to a touch of tender loving care, home health care services.
Okay.
They won the $10,000. There are 4 women, and they're in the home health care.
Right.
Okay. Was this the group that had the 1-year experience, or was this a new co-op, new business?
Actually, this was the one that had the 1-year experience. And it was interesting because we had 6 criteria for the judges to look at, to determine, who'd win. We looked at, all different criteria. I wasn't involved in the judging myself, but the judges did look at each one and, believe that this was the business, this was the right time and the timing. This was the business that made the case, would have the greatest impact even on community, at this particular time. So there were a number of variables that were involved, but in the end, that was their choice. I thought the presentations were all excellent. It would have been tough for me. I had no idea. Those of us who were on staff and present at that time had absolutely no idea who was going to win until that winner was announced.
So I've got that there are 5 in this last cohort. We're going to take our next break here in a minute, but a touch of TLC Home Health Care was the winner. There are 4 women that started this home health care service. Now, the CDF, the Co-op Development Fund, has some funding for groups like this, home health care services, and they also have an annual meeting. And I've been trying to get people, we're going to take our break, and then we're going to come back and talk about what happens in this next cohort and how people can get involved with this and with other resources around to help them get started. We're mainly talking about Cincinnati, and we're going to talk about Dayton, but there's also some co-ops in Cleveland, so our house got a lot going on. But we'll be right back. Don't touch the dial. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks. The program is Everything Cooperative. We have Dr. Cynthia Pinchback-Hines on today with us. The Cincinnati Enquirer named her one of the 10 most influential educators in Cincinnati and presented her with a Diversity Leadership Award. And this is the work that she did as an educator. And she told us earlier that she learned about co-ops because she went to a meeting and they asked her to be on the board, eventually asked her to be on the board. And she has really liked the organization, Co-op Cincy, and the different co-ops, the energy, the young folks, getting things done. So we talked about the first cohort that they put through, graduated, the 5 co-ops, and then the winner of $10,000, and the other 4 got $2,000 each. When is the next cohort, Dr. Pinchback-Hines, and how does one find out about this organization and how they can get into this next cohort? So they have 14 weeks of training, of learning.
All right. The next cohort starts October 5th, and that's just a few weeks from now. The application deadline is September 25th, which would be next Saturday. So what a person needs to do is to just go to our website, for one. It's very simple. It's coopcincy.org. That's co-op. It looks like C-O-O-P, as in Paul. Cincy is CINCY.org. And then they can go to the drop down at the top, and they'll see Co-op U, Black Co-op Youth they have to do is pull up the application. And, of course, if you get the information in by the deadline, then you can still possibly meet the date for starting, which is, again, October the 5th. And we will start and we will continue through, and this will actually carry us the 14 weeks of holidays. It will carry us through January 11th, would be our last date of attendance. And the way you get in touch with me is through my email, which is Cynthia, Cynthia, at coopcincy.org. And that's that.
Okay, so I went online while you were talking, and I went to Co-op, C-O-O-P, Cincy, CINCY.org, and the picture of Cincinnati shows up with the bridge and Co-op Cincy.
And over on the right-hand side, you'll see the drop-down, the three little lines over on the right. There'll be a drop-down for you. See that?
No, what I see is Co-op Cincy says creating an economy that works for all, which I like. And then it says apply now and transition your business to worker ownership.
Yes.
I don't see
that. That is if you look at the top, the very top of where it says Co-op Cincy with you see the skyline. Above the skyline, on the right-hand side, there are three red lines. That's the drop-down.
I see About Us, Updates, Union Co-ops, Business Legacy, Co-op U.
Co-op U, that's it.
And so I go to Co-op, I see Co-op U and Power in Numbers, Black-owned cohort of Co-op U. Since I'm Black-owned, I'm going to click on that one, Power in Numbers. Is that it?
That's what you do.
And then I see applications due when I scroll down the page.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see the picture of what looks like a panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. And I've met this young man that has the microphone.
From Dayton?
Yeah, I've met him. I've been to 3 of your annual meetings in Cincinnati, and I met him there. And I scroll down the page, and it says, right before applications, it says, work it and own it. Applications due September the 25th.
Right. And then even underneath that, you can see a video of some of the participants from our first cohort, where one of our interns was kind enough to video this, and she did a great job with that.
Do you have to be, the criteria, you have to be in Cincinnati, a business in Cincinnati or Ohio? Or
no, that is an excellent question. No, you do not have to be. We've had applications from other cities as well. I know for National Co-op, certainly we get them from everywhere. Our first cohort, we did. We left it to just Cincinnati. But this one, and because it's virtual training, it's virtual. You can do it from anywhere. It's very convenient. Just be in front of your screen and have your Zoom on for 2 hours on a Tuesday evening from 6 to 8, and the time goes by so fast. It really does, very quickly. Okay?
Okay. So everybody out there, and I think this is phenomenal that it's open. The reason I wanted to know is because I have 3 other people that we started we're starting Everything Co-op Communications LLC, which is a media cooperative, but we haven't done the guts of it because in D.C. you need 5 members to form a co-op in D.C. law. I notice you always talk about 2 members and 4 members, and so if that's Cincy law, maybe we'll open it up in Cincy, or we're looking for the 5th member, and then do all of the work of getting the bylaws and figuring out when we meet and who's going to be on the board and how we govern and all of that. I mean, yeah, I might put in one between now and September 25th, see if we can get the 4 people that have said they want to be a part of this media co-op to join us in. So is it all like the persons that won this did you need all 4 of them there every time, every Tuesday from 6 to 8?
Yeah, one of our requirements is that, is attendance. We did have some exceptions where there were people who had either school hours or, I think there were 2 individuals who had what we call perfect attendance. We had some unfortunate things happen. We even had one woman who called in, even though her brother had passed, and she, called in from, her, from that. But what we found is that the people who started attending did not want to miss. They didn't want to miss. This is a team effort, and what I love about it is that we, as Co-op Cincy, live the values, and we push the values, meaning that that's our expectation, the values. This is not something that you come in individually and think that I'm going to make a lot of money. It's not about that, because we put people before we do profit, for money. And then it was amazing. We had teams who, from the beginning said, they did not want to, people didn't want to speak. But we encouraged them, and they had opportunities to present. Everyone did. We had comments like, you really build our confidence in just presenting and marketing and being able to, look at our financials more seriously, ask the tough questions. Those are the types of things that we were doing during those 14 weeks that led up to the pitch, because we said everything that you do here can be applied to your pitch in some way. And they only had, guess how many minutes?
5.
Right. That was the max. Actually, we said 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they had to do a lot.
Elevator pitch.
That's
a real elevator pitch.
Exactly. And then did it with slides, with everything else, So we were really intent on keeping everything, tightly run, just for the fact that we only had the 14 weeks for one. And we just knew in some cases, where people came in just not knowing as much as they thought they knew about cooperative business, the cooperative business model, then this gave them an opportunity to learn from others as well. They, some of them, when they came in, they thought they were alone, but, really by the end of the second session especially, they realized that, there are a lot of similarities here, even though our businesses are very different. And
it's always amazing to me.
Amazing.
How the business can be so different in terms, whatever the product is or service, but the inner workings of the business are so similar. The systems
very
of the
similar.
business.
Right.
And working with people and solving conflicts, making decisions together, very, very similar. Very, very similar. Okay,
yes.
So I just want to summarize here real quickly, because this is exciting to me, is that you go to coopcincy.org.
It is exciting. It really is.
COOPCINCY.org, and then it will take you to their homepage, and at the top you click on Co-op U, and you have 2 things. You can click on Co-op U or Power in Numbers. That's for the black-owned co-op, and that's the group that Dr. Pinchback-Hines is shepherding, managing. They had 5 businesses last time, and this goes from applications are due on September the 25th. They start on August the 5th, and they finish on January the 11th. October. I was looking at October and said August. October the 5th is when you start, and it goes to January the 11th. And I'm going to talk to the 4 people in this that have said that they want to join this club to see if we want to fill out this application and join. It's a commitment of 14 Tuesdays from 6 o'clock in the evening to 8 o'clock in the evening, 2 hours every Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Here's another thing. We also have Co-op U, this National Co-op U. We want people, if you're not African American, certainly apply for that as well, because we'll start those in early next year, early 22. So we'll start seeing the applications for that as well. I'd like to put a pitch in also for some of our other important projects, like the Business Legacy Fund, which is phenomenal. This is for, businesses that want to leave a legacy, but they don't have anyone to leave it to necessarily. Think about leave it to your employees. And then we help those businesses transition from, a traditional business base to a cooperative business model. And we're excited about that as well.
So we're going to take our final break here. It goes by really quickly. And when we come back, I really do want to talk more about this legacy fund and this converting from a traditional business to a co-op, because I've heard some stats like baby boomers own 75% of traditional businesses, and there's going to be this huge transfer of wealth from baby boomers to either their children or they may even go out of business. But we'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, everybody. The National Co-op Bank has sponsored this program for the last 8 years. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities like Danville, Virginia, or Bluefield, West Virginia, or any other low-income community. It could be in Southeast D.C. or Harlem, New York, although Harlem is being gentrified. It could be Crenshaw in L.A., although it looks like it's going to be gentrified if the blacks do not get to own the Crenshaw Mall. They're trying to make it into 43 acres, since they're trying to make into co-ops and affordable housing co-ops. So National Co-op Bank really sees the benefit of getting people to know about co-ops. That's why they sponsor this program. So people like Cynthia Pinchback-Hines and I don't have to go most of our life before we know about co-ops and learn about the magic of cooperation. And so you help 5 businesses learn about co-ops, either get started or improve in this first round. You have the second round coming up. Go to coopcincy.org, fill out the application before September 25th and get into this education. I'm going to look at that with my group to see if we will join that. I am excited about what you're doing. And when we took break, you were talking about the legacy fund. And again, I have it that 70% of traditional business or some number like that are owned by baby boomers. And we are going to retire or move this business over, and too often the children don't want the business. So tell us about what this legacy fund is. You said a little bit about it before the break.
Right. Again, this is where we've had a number of agencies come together for this, including the African American Chamber, Black Achievers, and just the names of, well, there are several, put it that way. And we're in partnership with Co-op Cincy. And we have welcomed on board Christopher Bennett to manage this whole operation of finding businesses, first of all, finding businesses that are in that position of wanting to switch over or make the transition because maybe, again, the owner has decided to retire, or the owner just would like, to make that transition to leave a legacy again. And then transitioning, meaning that the people who work there, the workers, then buy the company, from the owner. We also have a separate program whereby we've selected about five or six individuals to be a part of this first cohort also of folks who will go through a general management course. And because sometimes what happens is there are businesses that just don't want to transition because they don't know who could be in charge. Who's going to take over. Maybe the people who work there aren't quite ready, for that actual running the place and necessarily. So there are individuals that we're actually training to help do that. People who own their own businesses as well and who are very connected to the cooperative model, and training them then to become managers as well to help make the transition over. So it's very unique. It's very different. It's very, I'd say, Co-op Cincy for that matter. We've been on the forefront of doing a lot of things. We've been the ones to kind of blaze the trail, for other folks. As an incubator, that's one of the things that we do. And you mentioned, Co-op Dayton. I don't want to leave them out for sure, because that's perhaps one of the greatest successes of the whole incubator process. Here you have a city that's very close to Cincinnati, all kinds of issues around, marginalization, poverty, just you name it. And they came to visit us at the annual symposium. And from there, everything has blown up in a positive way. They recently opened Gem City Market. There was a food desert. I had the pleasure of being there on their opening day, and it was crazy, just seeing all the people there. There's nowhere to park, first of all, which was great. They had lines, people just waiting to get checked out. I was excited for them. I'm still excited for them. They have over 5,000 members at this time, that help support the business. And that's just one of their businesses. They have a land trust that they've started. The whole idea of we need property too, and have to understand, this whole thing about the market of real estate. And they just done that. They're a makerspace, that is already in process. They're located. They have locations. They've done some test marketing for that. Just some brilliant work, for Co-op Dayton as well. But again, back to the Business Legacy Fund. We too are looking to expand the cooperative business model because we think it works. We think it's more recession-proof, in these times especially. And it's great for supporting, what better way, in other words, to support the community than by actually living, the principles, the Mondragon principles, that we often talk about.
So as I said, I've been at 3 of the annual meetings in person before COVID, and I was introduced to Co-op Dayton, the folks there. There were folks there from Los Angeles, a couple other cities where you all were incubating. Christine Barker and Michael Peck and others there were doing this work, and it's just phenomenal and really fascinating about what kinds of things we can do when we work together. Just really, really great.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I also want to let people know that I met Dr. Pinchback-Hines because we are on a panel. The NCBA is having their Impact Conference October 4th through the 8th is when they're having their Impact Conference. And we are on a panel of reimagining Appalachia. Ohio is in Appalachia, West Virginia. There are 13 states in Appalachia, starting from New York, going down to Mississippi in these mountain ranges. And so we're talking about reimagining Appalachia with co-ops. Poverty, you mentioned Dayton as the poverty. Well, it seemed like all of West Virginia in particular, where I grew up in Bluefield, Mercer County, and McDowell County, a lot of poverty. But how these communities can use co-op. You've already mentioned to create jobs is one of the things they do, but get their skill set. Mm-hmm. So I'd like for people to go to this conference. It's virtual, partially virtual, and then on Thursday and Friday they're having some live events. I'm doing all virtual, the Co-op Cincy and reimagining Appalachia. So I really want to thank you so much for the work you're doing in this world Do you like the work?
I love the work. I really do. And one of the things I didn't share with you is that, other than my teaching experience, I actually worked in corporate for 20 years. So that's where also, and we talked about teaching, a lot of my training and all, I was in charge of training for Cognis Corporation. I did it for globally, in fact. And so I spent a lot of time understanding both sides, the corporate world and the world of education. So I think I have a pretty good feel for both, certainly a perspective that may be somewhat broader, and for that matter, for those who've only been in one. But I love what I do because then I'm also able to live my values. And that takes me back again to my childhood. When I saw injustice in my childhood, I just thought, as I get older, I wish there's something, I didn't want to feel helpless and hopeless. I never felt that way. I just said, I want things to be better. And so I was striving to do that. And in everything that I do, it's been intentional, whether it has been education or what I've done in even my corporate work. I spent a lot of time diversity and inclusion, there. And so today I can say that I am where I want to be, where I feel needed and appreciated. And I think a lot of that certainly has to do with, the staff, for one, that I work with, but also because of the type of work that we do. It is meaningful. It does have an impact.
Dr. Pinchback-Hines, we've got to go. I really appreciate the work you're doing. Everybody out there, co-ops help people come out of poverty with dignity. So please join a co-op.
One thing, our annual event, again, is November 12th and 13th. And I also wanted to put a plug in for Mona Jenkins because she is our new food justice coordinator.
Gotta go. It's gotta go.